The aviation industry has long relied on the same kind of technology that has powered airplanes for over a century. But that era is coming to an end. As environmental pressures rise and technology advances, it's becoming increasingly clear that the future of flight must look very different from the past. Many people once placed high hopes in Boeing's 787 Dreamliner, an aircraft that promised to be much more efficient than its predecessors. While it did introduce some innovations in aerodynamics and fuel savings, it still relied heavily on jet fuel, leaving the industry's core environmental challenges unresolved. But now, something truly revolutionary has emerged. Elon Musk has just unveiled the Tesla helicopter, a fully electric vertical takeoff and landing vehicle that could completely transform how we think about short-distance air travel and aerial mobility. The big question now is, how could this breakthrough impact the business world and global transportation? Before we dive into the details of Tesla's new electric helicopter and what makes it a game-changer, it's important to understand why the shift toward electric aviation is so vital. Air travel is one of the most significant contributors to climate change, and the effects are felt far beyond the skies. Emissions from traditional aircraft don't just add carbon dioxide to the atmosphere. They release nitrogen oxides and fine particles that affect both the climate and human health. Constant aircraft noise disrupts sleep, hinders children's learning, increases stress and cardiovascular risks in communities near airports. Beyond that, the chemicals used in dicing and refueling can seep into soil and groundwater, polluting local water supplies if not properly managed. All of this makes the case for cleaner aviation technology even more urgent. In the United Kingdom, transportation has now surpassed electricity generation as the country's largest source of pollution. Air travel alone accounts for roughly 4% of those emissions. And that number is projected to rise dramatically as global air traffic continues to increase. If nothing changes, by 2050 passenger numbers could reach a point where limits must be imposed just to control pollution. Yet, according to the UK's Committee on Climate Change, there is still hope. The committee believes that the UK can meet its goal of cutting emissions by 80%, compared to 1990 levels by the middle of the century, but only if decisive action is taken soon. To stay in line with the Paris Agreement, the committee has called for even stricter targets, urging industries like aviation to offset their greenhouse gas emissions through methods such as carbon capture, reforestation, and the use of alternative fuels. In December 2020, the UK Climate Change Committee laid out several mitigation options for the aviation industry. These include managing demand more efficiently, improving aircraft design to boost energy efficiency, adopting hybrid or fully electric propulsion systems, and using sustainable aviation fuels to replace fossil-based jet fuel. They also recommended that emissions from international air travel and shipping be included in the country's carbon budget, with hopes that other nations would follow suit. Electric-powered aircraft are central to these plans because they produce zero emissions at the point of operation. And when powered by renewable energy sources, they can virtually eliminate pollution from the aviation sector altogether. However, transitioning from fuel to electricity is not a simple swap. One of the biggest challenges lies in energy density, the amount of energy that can be stored in a given weight of fuel or battery. Aviation gasoline has an astonishing energy density of about 12,500 watt-hours per kilogram, and modern jet fuel engines operate with a usable efficiency that still puts them far ahead of current batteries. In contrast, lithium-ion batteries, the most advanced form of widely available energy storage, offer around 160 watt-hours per kilogram. On paper, that looks like an enormous disadvantage. But this doesn't tell the full story. Electric propulsion systems, such as motors and power converters, are far more efficient than combustion engines. Where jet turbines waste a large portion of their energy as heat, electric systems can convert over 90% of their stored energy into usable power. This efficiency advantage significantly narrows the gap, producing an effective ratio of available shaft power that can rival traditional engines in many cases. Collins Aerospace has projected that electric propulsion could become practical even for long-range aircraft thanks to these efficiency improvements. The company estimates that electric propulsion systems could achieve a 150-to-1 power advantage under certain conditions. The German Aerospace Center DLR has also made significant predictions in 2019. They stated that large electric aircraft could become commercially viable by 2040, while electric power might not replace jet engines on intercontinental flights until closer to 2070. Smaller aircraft, such as regional jets, private planes, and vertical takeoff helicopters, are likely to go electric much sooner. The UK's Climate Committee admits that no one can predict exactly when these breakthroughs will occur, but analysts are confident that progress is accelerating. Consulting firm Roland Berger reported that between 2016 and 2018 alone, more than 80 new electric aircraft development programs were launched around the world. Roughly two-thirds of those focused on small, fully electric aircraft, while the rest explored hybrid electric systems designed for larger, medium-range planes. The first wave of electric commercial flights could begin as early as the early 2030s, particularly for short routes such as London to Paris. However, experts predict that fully electric, large-scale commercial aircraft likely won't dominate the skies until around 2045. The environmental stakes are enormous. If the aviation industry continues improving fuel efficiency by just 1% each year, without adopting electric or hybrid technology, it could still account for a staggering 24% of global emissions by 2050. But if airlines begin replacing older planes with electric or hybrid models starting in 2030, and if those aircraft make up about 70% of all commercial planes by 2050, that number could drop to as little as 3 to 6%. Clearly, electric aviation isn't just an environmental dream, it's becoming an economic and industrial necessity. The longer airlines wait to adopt the technology, the more they risk seeing their current fleets lose value as new regulations, efficiency demands, and carbon penalties take effect. So how exactly do electric aircraft, and by extension the Tesla helicopter, actually work? The concept is surprisingly straightforward, but technologically demanding. Electric aircraft use stored electrical energy to drive one or more motors that spin propellers or rotors. The energy can come from several possible sources. One option is photovoltaic solar cells that directly convert sunlight into electricity, either to power the craft immediately or to charge onboard batteries. Another is ground-based power transmission using microwave or laser beams that deliver energy wirelessly to the aircraft. Yet another method is a tethered electrical cable that provides continuous power from the ground. Though this is limited to testing and special use cases, of these, solar power remains one of the most promising for small, high-altitude applications. Solar cells have the remarkable ability to transform light directly into electricity. But the challenge is that each cell only produces a tiny amount of power. To achieve meaningful output, many cells must be connected together to form large panels. These panels, depending on their conversion efficiency, typically produce between 150 and 200 watts per square meter under direct sunlight. While that might sound modest, the technology has advanced at an incredible rate. Between 2010 and 2020, the cost of solar modules dropped by around 90%, and the prices continued to fall by 30 to 50% per year thanks to better materials and mass production. At the same time, solar efficiency has soared. Back in 1955, the best solar cells could barely convert 2% of sunlight into usable power. By 1985, that number had climbed to about 20%. Today, experimental models have already surpassed 44% efficiency, and breakthroughs in perovskite and tandem cell designs promise even more improvement in the coming years. For long-distance, high-altitude flight, such as what might be achieved by future solar-powered drones or stratospheric communication platforms, solar power becomes especially effective. The sun's rays are stronger at altitude, and temperatures are much colder, which helps maintain battery efficiency and reduces cooling requirements for electronics. At higher altitudes, the air is thinner, meaning less drag on the aircraft and better performance for propellers and rotors. This combination of consistent sunlight and lower resistance makes high-altitude solar flight extremely efficient. Compared to operations at ground level, to understand just how dramatic the temperature difference can be. Consider that air temperature drops by about 6.49 degrees Celsius for every kilometer you go up in altitude, a figure pilots often remember as roughly 1.98 degrees Celsius per thousand feet, or about 3.56 degrees Fahrenheit per thousand feet. This means that at a typical cruising altitude of 35,000 feet, or about 11,000 meters, the air temperature can be dozens of degrees colder than on the ground. These low temperatures are advantageous for electric systems because they reduce thermal stress and improve power conversion efficiency. Now, this is where Tesla's innovation truly enters the scene. Elon Musk.